Hi, everyone. Welcome. And as we're filing in, I'd like to welcome you. My name is Marche. I'm the webinar director here at Advice Chaser. And we do need to do a little bit of legal housekeeping before we get started, and then we'll get into our great content today. Advice Chaser, the host of this webinar, is not a registered investment advisor. We cannot and do not give financial advice. Today's presentation is for educational purposes only and could not be considered advice for any person's individual situation. Advice Chaser regularly hosts informative webinars such as this one, featuring a variety of knowledgeable professionals, many of whom are licensed advisors. Any opinions, ideas, jokes, or principles expressed by presenters are their own, and however true, funny, or interesting, are not endorsed by Advice Chaser. Please do not act on the information you hear today without consulting a qualified financial professional. Well, we are thrilled to bring you this educational presentation. We've had a lot of interest in this one, and we're thrilled that you're here today. And just a couple of notes. Attendees are muted, but we do encourage you to ask questions using the chat box that's available to you. And our presenter has agreed to answer those queries after the webinar today during our question and answer period. If you ask a question in the chat box, go ahead and leave your phone number and email address as well, so that in case we don't have time to answer your question, we can go ahead and reach out to you after today's event. Again, we want this experience to be as educational as possible, excuse me. So please don't hesitate to ask for clarification or expansion of the material. Well, I'd love to introduce you to our presenter today. Ellen DeLapp is an award-winning certified professional organizer and productivity consultant, and has recognized for her contributions in the industry and her community. She has extensive experience in working with ADHD individuals and holds certificates of study in ADD and chronic disorganization, and is a member of the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. She works with families as a family manager coach. She is currently the past president of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, and she holds a bachelor's degree from Smith College and a master's degree in education from Boston College. Ellen's goal is to empower her clients by making a difference in their lives. And I will say, if you love Ellen, we have 2 webinars that she's already done with us. So those are also available at advicechaser.com. And I'm going to go ahead and turn over the time to you, Ellen. We're so happy to have you back.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me again, Marche. I'm really excited to share something I'm very passionate about, which is organizing secrets for people with ADHD. I'm very fortunate and blessed because I have worked with clients with ADHD for close to 20 years. I really think of it as a calling more than anything else because I'm able to be a trusted partner in all sorts of their organizing and productivity, working with them individually, with their families, at their workplaces. So I'm excited to share with you what I can to help you make a difference in your own life. So, of course, before we even get started, I want to talk a little bit about you understanding your own individual ADHD or ADD. Every individual with ADHD really has all different things that are their strengths, their challenges, how they work. So everybody with neurodiversity, that is, thinking in a diverse way with their brains, there's some commonalities, but really everybody operates within their own strengths. And for that reason, I want you to think today when we're talking about these different secrets, that what you can take home with you today, which is just one thing you can put into place. I think many times we try to be overly ambitious about what we want to change. And so I want you to think about the one thing you can take away and be thinking about your self-care. We're going to talk a lot about some of those challenges on a slide, things that have to do with getting a great night's sleep, taking good care of what they eat, what you eat, what the people around you eat, and also just incorporating exercise into your daily routine. So these are some of the things that contribute to the success of your executive functioning. Executive functioning is the part of your brain where you do planning, execution, completion, control, impulsivity, emotional regulation. So there's a lot going on for people with ADHD. And so again, you want to be able to just think about one or two things you can get started with right now. So one of the biggest challenges I find with the clients that I work with, no matter whether they're a student or a parent or an entrepreneur or someone who works with a company, is just their sense of time and how they work with their time tools. So a sense of time is often lacking for people with executive function challenges. We don't necessarily know how much time does it take to complete a task. How many tasks are we capable of doing in the amount of time we have? How many tasks do we have on our plate altogether? So one of the first secrets I share is about creating more time awareness for yourself. And these tools, such as the time timer, which is a visual representation for you for time. It's a physical timer you can buy or a timer you can use on your phone or another device that has a face with hands, just like in our image right here. Very important for you to use analog clocks rather than digital clocks, just to see time elapsing. So with the time timer, there's a red bar that will diminish as time is elapsing. So it's a good visual reminder. The Encore Time Master is partnered with your Windows product, so it'll help you when you get online. And how many times is it that we get online that time just evaporates, doesn't it? We have no sense of how much time we've been spending working on a project online. So this just gives us a way to get more awareness of how much time is passing. One of my favorite secrets that I share with people is partnering the Pomodoro method with any of your timers. Pomodoro tomato timer is that cute little timer that looks like a tomato. And the strategy is that you go through a series of work periods and pauses, not only because it helps refresh your brain and you're thinking more clearly and helping you stay focused, but it also helps you get the project to completion. One of the biggest challenges that my clients have, that last 10%, because there's so many little steps, it's maybe not very interesting at that point. So having something that draws you into completion, like this Pomodoro sequence, will help you get finished whatever project or product you're trying to get done. Rescue Time is also an online tool that will help you know, how much time am I spending? So sometimes we'll have people do a time grid where they're realizing it took me this long to get this job done. It might take this long at home, this long at work. So that way you can be more realistic about your time awareness and then be able to set up yourself for success, knowing in a time block, I know this is going to take me this much time or this many time blocks. We'll talk about time blocking in a minute. Now, the wonderful thing about post-pandemic is we have lots of ways to add automation and delegation that are not very difficult. Most of us have devices in our home like Alexa and Siri, where we can have them set the timer for us. We can have our smartwatch set the timer for us. We have a phone. We have all devices that have these ways that we can add timers to our lives very easily. So we also want to think about the big picture with time, which is where do things fit into a continuum of the calendar? Most of my clients are using month-at-a-glance planners because they like to see the big picture. When are these things happening in relation to other things? It's all about context, isn't it? So we know that if I'm going to be making this plan, I know it's in relation to something else. So it's really important for you and your family to use some type of month-at-a-glance planner. A lot of people just, again, go back to their paper month-at-a-glance, those big paper blotters that we see. They sell them all over the place at big box stores. They sell them at Amazon. But it's a very good tool for us to be able to communicate about what's going on with our family. It's a good way for us to process information, because a lot of times, one of my clients in particular, She works as a teacher. So many things are on her calendar already that come from her school. So when she's planning her program, she looks at her month at a glance calendar, and in different colors, like things that are required of her from the school are in one color. Her programming and training, her teaching is in another color. And then sometimes she puts on like additional information in a different color, information about field trips, things that they're leaving the school. So it just stands out to her. So not only is the month at a glance planner a reminder system for your time, it's a planning and processing tool as well. And I mentioned the analog clock, but if you don't have enough analog clocks at transition points in your home, it would be a great time to add them. They're very inexpensive. They're usually the ones that are plastic. They're not super attractive, but they're super basic. You can find attractive ones online everywhere, but you want to place them in places that you feel like you're not always as aware of time as you might want to be, such as when you're trying to get out the door in the morning. So you might want to place one in your bathroom or your kids' bathrooms, anywhere that you think is going to be, oh, if I knew how much time had passed, I'd be speeding up a little so I can get moving and get to my next step, whatever that is.
Before we move on, we did have one question for the audience. The month at a glance planner, digital or paper?
Both. I love them because for me, the paper one is way more visual. So people who are highly visual, which I run into, most of my clients are highly visual people. They have to see it to be able to know it and understand it, and it really imprints on their brain. So what I like about that is that you can post it anywhere and you're constantly reminded. It becomes kind of a backdrop in your brain of what times you have assignments, or you might have appointments, things like that. The digital, I really love, but it's easier to see on a computer or a bigger screen. So, but the good thing about the digital is the reminders are much more easily set. So then we can pop up reminders. So I firmly believe in what I call the hybrid system. So there's some things that are digital on my own planner, and some things that are, I'm a very big paper planner person. I highly endorse having the month at a glance view and the week at a glance view. So, but most of my clients are really drawn to the month at a glance, but yeah, digital or paper, whatever calls out to you. So a lot of times it's thinking about the process. Remember, I talked a little bit about context. Well, context really helps us with a process. So process is almost everything we do all day. It has to do with our personal life and our business. And so process is how we go about creating a routine, something we want to do consistently and do on a routine basis. So a process for many of my clients has to do with, how do I get my expense account put in and get paid back? A process might be, how do I order groceries every week and actually get dinner on the table? So you think about the processes that are important to what you're doing, and maybe focus in on the ones you're doing well first. So don't think about necessarily ones, oh my gosh, I never get this done. Think about, how does it happen that my process of laundry, which is a very difficult process for people that I work with, because usually they're really, really good at getting it in the washer and dryer, and then what happens? It's much more difficult to get back to wherever that goes, whether it's your room, your kid's room, your closet, whatever. So think about a process you're doing well. Why does it work? Usually there's some little tweak in there that's going to help you not only create the process, but sustain the process. So again, for highly visual people, that might look like a checklist. It looks like, here are the steps that I do this, and then check them off as they go. For auditory people, it might be, here's a reminder that comes along at a certain point. So any process can be tweaked. It's kind of like a version that's a work in progress, a draft, however you want to think about it, because it's, small baby steps of improvement. So just think about, if there's a process that's working, how come it works well? And how can I use that to boost a process that I want to improve on? And so talking about routines, I want to talk a little bit about our morning routine. I think you probably see a lot of this in social media around you. 10 steps, the best morning routine you can ever have. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, step 3, I'm gone. So be thinking about like, what does it mean for you to have a successful morning? And my secret is a successful morning starts the night before. Anything you can do the night before is going to make your life so much better, because it's not always your best time of day is the morning for people with ADHD. Many of them are night people. And so as a result, anything you can get done the night before is going to help you boost the morning. And also that emotional regulation, like we're sometimes a little fuzzy in the morning, like we're not feeling like we're 100% with the program. So again, anything you can do the night before is going to be super helpful. Simplify your breakfast. Nobody said we have to have a really big breakfast, but we have to have its protein. Protein is the most important thing for people with ADHD because their brains work really well with protein. And then just build in an extra time. This often we're thinking like, if everything works perfectly, we'll be out the door on time. Well, that is like a pretty low percentage of possibility, right? So we need to have a little extra time and think about, if it takes you 20 minutes, you think, to get ready in the morning, give yourself at least 40 minutes, double or triple the amount of time you expect to be able to get everything done in the morning and out the door in a happy mood. So everyone's feeling good about starting their day. And the most important part of this is setting a good bedtime, which again, I know I'm speaking with people who have difficulty with sleep. Sleep patterns are very difficult for people with ADHD. So just be thinking about what amount of time. One of my clients I was talking with this week was telling me she has, again, used different sleep apps to help her know, if I get 8 hours of sleep, I have to start at this time, then I'm going to be doing my best work throughout the day. When I'm less than 8 hours, it gets a little messy. So whatever the bedtime is that allows you the amount of sleep that you need, and it's a worthy quest to keep looking for remedies that will help you get a good night's sleep. And then as much as you can, set your Alexa, set Siri, like use all the reminders that are auditory and visual to help you be successful in the morning with what you want to do. You can write on your mirror in pen. You can have a checklist at the back of your door. You can have little cards that signal what's the next step. So be thinking this context, what's my process? And again, it's a work in progress. So if it doesn't work the first day, tweak it a little and think about what it is a successful morning means to you. And that way you'll be able to accomplish your goals. So productivity is, again, one of the highest topics I talk about with my clients because they feel like they never get enough done. They're very, very optimistic about how much can be done in a day and also how they're going to get that accomplished. So I want to give you a couple of secrets that are going to help you feel more accomplished in a day's work. And that means whether you're working as a work at home person, work from home person, stay at home person, all of these things apply to what your work is every day. So if you don't have to keep remembering everything, because remember, working memory is not very well established for people with executive function things going on. We need these tools. So we talked about our planner, dates, tasks. We want to record them so that we have them. We don't have to remember them all the time. That's where we go back to our month at a glance planner. We also want to think about what is good enough in our tasks. So there's definitely a sense of overthinking and perfectionism that comes along with my clients and the challenges that they face. So just good enough. Give yourself a definition of that. Like maybe that's just taking one micro step today along the path of how do I want to organize my closet? How do I want to approach a project that I'm working on? So just good enough is done, started is good enough often. Taking breaks and making things manageable. So just thinking about the different ways that we work, think about how much of break is sometimes needed. Like you get to a paralyzed point and you're thinking, I'm not moving forward. I'm just kind of spinning my wheels. I'm veering off into social media right now because I'm stuck. So making things manageable in chunks makes it easier for you to get finished with the project as a whole. And those manageable chunks come within a context. Sometimes they're a deadline that someone set or you set for yourself. Sometimes that chunk is a piece of a project. When I think about like planning for a project, then executing the project, finishing up the project. So think about what a chunk is for you. Using a timer like we've talked about with the Pomodoro method, and then batching similar tasks. This is something we've known about for a while. So when we have to do some task and we design it so that we're making all the phone calls at the same time, we're writing emails 3 times throughout the day, we are running errands on a single day. So giving yourself permission to group things together that are alike and then executing that task all at the same time gets the job done. Elevating your space. So a lot of times we're going to talk a little bit about what your environment does, what a big role it has on the impact of getting things done. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And then, sometimes we just need to, again, take a little break, get a little hydrated, take a walk, even if it's a walk up and down the stairs at your office building, just get out in the green space. Those can make a big difference for your productivity. So there's lots of micro triggers that are distractions to us. Those are internal distractions, they're external distractions. The internal distractions sometimes focus around decision-making, which is extremely hard, and sometimes narrowing that decision to the top 3 choices. That could be very helpful rather than every possibility being an option. So even if you have a designated way, I talked about on my blog today a little bit about pre-decision making or rules or strategies that limit choices. So all of those things are ways for you to avoid these little deviations from getting things done. Checklists, again, this visual representation for you keeps you on track. And those checklists can be very much micro steps, like more micro than you might think. Even like turning on your computer sometimes might be the micro step. The micro step might be contacting a team member who's going to work with you, setting up a meeting. For home, it might be getting online to order the groceries. So you determine what the micro steps are that are going to help you just keep moving forward. And then creating an environment with as few distractions as possible. So some of those distractions are our auditory ones where there's notifications and alerts. We want to turn them off. And some of those distractions are things that are out on the countertop around us, such as at our desk. We might have too many papers out. We might have too many knickknacks. Maybe we even have too many wonderful family photos. At our home, those distractions might be too much clutter on our countertop in our kitchen. So think about paring down your environment so you feel like there's less visual clutter, and then it's easier for you to be productive, accomplish the goals you have. So time blocking, I think, again, this is one of those topics you're seeing in many places right now. And it's your list of what to do and when to do it. It's the version of I'm taking my master list, paring it down to my priorities and plugging my priorities into certain time slots. So I first want to divide up my day and my week into when is the best time for me to do the kind of work I need to do. And only you know that, because some of us are morning people, some of us are afternoon, and literally some of us work best at 8 p.m., right? So we need to know, I want to match up my time block with the energy level I have, as well as the task to do it. So that's like the best possible way to be productive. I also want to remind you that while everything seems important, I want you to be able to cull down your list for a week to your 3 most important tasks, which I know seems like an impossibility because you seem like, wow, there's so much more that I have to do. How would I ever get all the things done on my list? But by simply giving yourself permission to focus on the 3 most important tasks, not only are they going to be done well and to your satisfaction, you're going to feel more productive because they were done. So you set time blocks for duration that works well for you. So personally, I am a 1-hour time blocker because I feel like I've done high energy work and I'm ready to give myself what I call percolation time, like a little time to think about things and then come back to it in a day or two. That is not my client's preference. My client's preferences are a very lengthy amount of time for work with few transitions. So the secrets for people with ADHD is give yourself longer than you might think. So it gives you the opportunity to, what I say, have a warm up. So the warm up is I'm getting myself together. I'm getting myself into the mental preparation to be less distracted. That's going to take me a little time. Sometimes I tell people set the timer for 15 minutes. So you're in the warm up for 15 minutes, then you're gracefully gliding into your actual work period. And that work period, the duration, like with hyperfocus, can be very long, but think about like what is going to signal to you to finalize and wrap up, and then leave yourself a note, either auditory or digital, that here's why I am today, so I can pick back up, because very few projects can really be, college students try this all the time. It's called an all-nighter, right? There's very few things we can do in a 24-hour period and actually get them done. So give yourself the opportunity to give a lengthy amount of time to do the work, and then give yourself a note to pick up back up where you were. So some of the things that I think are good possibilities for time blocking are things to do with paper management, which we all hate to file. So if we just file for an hour or two, hey, we've knocked that filing down, we're kind of good to go for a short time. Might be finances and bills. Like paying bills takes us more time than we think. There used to be this commercial where someone would start running the bathwater and pay her bills. And I'm like, that is not possible, okay? We know that it takes at least an hour to pay our bills because we have to get online. We have to figure out the password. After that, we have to find the amounts that we have to pay. Again, the process that we want to create. And so we give ourselves a really good time block to do that. And then the family meeting. I'm a big believer in the family meeting, which keep it short. So less time is, well, pretty much the way to go with the family meeting, so we don't lose interest. And then that way we're communicating with each other and we're writing things on our family month at a glance planner. For work, some of these things are administrative. Like sometimes those are the things that fall through the cracks that are, adding online CEUs to where we need to add them and uploading documentation for things, finalizing client meetings. So sometimes you have to just think at work, if I assign myself a block to get something done, it might be those things that are falling through the cracks, but it might be that I just need to be more uniform about when I meet with clients so that I'm meeting with them at the time that works best for me, not just the time that is available anytime during the week. So thinking about self-care, this is one of the most important slides that I'd love you to take something away from, because we're notoriously bad at self-care, aren't we? I mean, we just put ourselves last too much. And so I want you to think about what self-care means to you. So it's not necessarily this glamorous, I'm in a bubble bath reading a magazine, or, fluffy, oh, I'm time for my manicure. It's also things like, how do I be sure I'm eating nutritiously? How do I get exercise in my day? How do I make sure that I'm communicating with the people I love? Because connection is one of the most important ways we take care of ourselves. Ensuring that we're getting a good night's rest. Just think about the ways that you can add automation, add team members, and just think of creative ways that you can fulfill your own self-care. And sometimes we need a little help. I know through Advice Chaser, they're big advocates for hiring a helper. I'm a huge advocate of building a bigger team, getting a coach or a counselor, a trusted friend that you walk with. A professional will really take this to the next level for you. That's why there are so many professionals, not only in my field at the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, but also throughout the coaching fields that will help you with your self-care. So some of the exercise routines, not only are they great for our brain, they're great for connecting with people. I'm an avid bike rider with my husband. I love it. I take a walk every day with a friend. So I just want you to think there's simple ways. We don't have to all go to the gym and lift 50 pounds. We can just start very, very small, take back your micro steps, and think about what is it that I can incorporate more exercise routines in my day. So I'm sure many of y'all were interested in my secrets to tackling clutter. And we all know it's about letting go of what we don't love or use. But I want to give you the secret that I've learned most recently is that it's really hard to let go of things if I don't know how many of them I have. So instead of just starting by releasing things, start by categorizing things. So putting things together, like how many pair of black pants do I have? How many shirts do I have? So once I see them all together, it is going to be so much easier for me to release things. And I need to give myself an appointment because unfortunately, there's a lot of emotion involved in this. Not only is it decision making that's difficult, sometimes it's sadness. Some of these things are like, I didn't get to use that and I spent a lot of money on it. Or, oh, I remember the last time I used this, I wore this and it was a family occasion and it was really sad. I didn't get along with someone in my family at that time and we had difficulty, being together. So remember, tackling your clutter, you want to get things together so you know what you have, and then try to decide, be a little bit linear, think about how many do I really need of this, be a little bit linear, set a timer so I know I'm going to do this for an hour and then I'm good. Work when you have high energy, so it's easier for you to release things. Think about the connections you're making. Can you give this to a friend? Can you give this to a philanthropy in your community where you can make a difference? So that way, you're always having that emotionally positive feeling of releasing. And then maintenance, and it does take a while, but I assure you, if you spend a little time organizing, the rewards are enormous. So just a little time spent letting go of things, you're going to feel so much better of what you have in your house and how your environment feels and looks. But to maintain it, I set a new standard too, because not only is it so much coming in, we need to remember, if one thing comes in, two things need to go out so that it's easier for you to maintain your sense of balance of how much is in your space. And most importantly, set a reset time. Like get things back to where they go, because that helps when you're categorizing. When everything's everywhere, it feels a lot more chaotic and disorganized, whereas you might actually have homes for things, they're just not getting back to where they go. A lot of times I'm talking about finances with my clients. And again, this is a big area that of improvement for people that I work with, because we all want to use our resources so wisely. And we also want to know, where are we using our right resources? So having some routines, even though, again, this is an area where emotion comes in, we feel a lot of fear, we're feeling a lot of scarcity right now, but addressing the things that we know are most important, like what are our financial goals? It's not just saving, but what are we saving for? Like, what is our big why about that? It's also about thinking, I have things to share. Am I able to donate more things and more of my stuff because I know that I have resources and ways to back that up? Organizing your financial papers. There's tons of resources online to determine how long you need to keep financial papers. They are the things you need to keep the longest, especially taxes. So I usually refer to checking online to find a significant record retention schedule. Ask your accountant. Again, go back to the expertise of the professional in your field, which I'm sure Advice Chaser has many people who can help you with this, and know what do I need to keep and how long I need to keep it So then we can do a lot of shredding because most of these things have account numbers on them. And that's how we need to eliminate the papers. There's tons of ways to track expenses. I think there's lots of best apps for this. I'm not even going to recommend any because there's so many going on right now that will help you not only let you know how much you're spending on things, but also even your credit score, just looking even on the bank apps. There's lots of available resources that will help you automate things. And this is an area you definitely want to have a professional help you, because not only is it about organizing, it's about planning, and they're just partnering with you and helping you create the process for what you want to accomplish with your finances. So that's very much where you want to spend time with your team. So I again want you to go back, think about one of the things we talked about today, and think about what's a micro step. Enlist a buddy. It could be a clutter buddy, a paper partner. It could be anybody who you think is a trusted helper and who will be help you be accountable to what you're setting into process. So thanks for joining me. I know there's some questions.
Yeah, we do have some questions, and I want to say we've got some questions that already come in. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and then we'll try to address them as we go along here for as much time as we have. All right, so this is a good question. I am a night person, but my partner is a morning person. And so preparing for them, it can be difficult to work on our schedule together.
Right, I agree. I actually, many of my clients, they are very much night owls and their partners are early birds. So, communicating about what you want to work together on and finding a time, especially on the weekends when that overlap is a lot easier to work together on a project, and think about, it's good that everybody's different. And so use both of those strengths to your advantage.
All right. Can you talk a little more about combating perfectionism? It feels like I never get things done because I want it to be perfect.
Yes. So there's a couple questions you can ask yourself is, what's the worst thing that can happen if this doesn't end up perfect? And usually the answer will tell you, oh, that's not as bad as I thought. And so, having some mantras, there's many of them, such as done is perfect. Just thinking about my goal is to do a good enough job. What's the minimum I could do? So these are all ways that we're transitioning the perspective we have about perfectionism. And yes, it totally is one of the biggest challenges for people because it's so paralyzing. So I admire you that this is something that you want to start working towards.
All right, this is a great question. It feels like everything's a mess around me. Where should I start?
Oh, I love this question. This is one of the favorite questions. I actually have a blog post on where to start. So there's a couple responses. Number one is start with what's most frustrating, because whatever's most frustrating is what's most motivating. Start with something small. One of my favorite quotes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So you might start in the smallest space possible at your house. Remember, or office. We're all talking about micro steps. Smallest space, smallest step forward. I love to lean back into self-care. Start in your closet. Start in something that's going to be about you so that it's easier for you to put your own oxygen mask on every day. So start small, start about you, start about something that's frustrating so it's motivating.
This is a really great question. Please, can you discuss why it's hard to release items from a parent who has passed? How can you approach that kind of task?
It is very hard. There's a lot of emotion. And I know that when things come to us in the beginning, everything seems equally important that was passed to us. There's a little bit of a step that I tell people, think about something that is really dear to you that you can keep, that is a small thing that you can keep. So that's often a first baby step. So
Can you talk about maybe managing those emotions a little bit?
so the emotions of, I'm sorry, repeat that one more time.
Can you talk about kind of managing the emotions that are maybe attached to those items?
Okay, so grief is a really complex emotion. And so sometimes I have seen with people that I've worked with that even over the years, those emotions don't really dissipate. They're still there. But going back into like taking a picture of that item. So you don't have to keep the item. I think a lot of the challenge with grief is working memory isn't strong. So the item replaces the working memory, like this thing has taken on the emotion of grief and the person. So there's substitutions, like, can I take a picture of it? There's the processing with a professional, which will help you release some of the emotions. And those emotions can be positive and negative. So trying to pare down in a micro step way, like categorize things. So the emotions don't necessarily change, like you're still grieving at times, but it's the stuff meaning more to you and meaning less over time sometimes. And sometimes I will say that there is intense grief and it's still difficult to let go of the stuff, like let go of the stuff being the stuff in your house that reminds you of that person. The paperwork, like these were papers in a file drawer. They don't necessarily mean that they're valuable or important. The estate, the paperwork of the state is almost finished, but you want to think about what little can I keep of that paperwork because it still reminds me of that person. So it's in diminishing a little at a time. And then also knowing that you might need the help of a professional to work through the emotions of the stuff as well.
Well, thank you so much for that question, and thank you for that thoughtful answer. This is a very good one. I struggle with motivation. I'm always waiting to the last minute to get things done, and deadlines are the only thing that really make me do stuff.
Motivation is very, very tricky for people with ADHD. Their deep-seated why, like why do I want to do this, is helpful, but you really need to tap into a short-term why for you, but also focus on your future self. Like my future self is going to be happy that I cleared the clutter from the house today. My future self is going to be happy I know the money that's in my bank account. And so it really is, as much as it's external, like many times I hear from my clients, the only reason I'm doing this is my boss is waiting on it. So sometimes it depends on the person, like partnering with the person is a motivation as well. You would never let that person down. So finding those internal motivations can sometimes come back to being creative and thinking about what's my why, and then if I'm breaking it down into a baby step, I can get started, because a lot of times that procrastination comes from another emotion. It comes from fear. It comes from, I don't want to look stupid. So also tap into like naming that emotion. That's your procrastination.
Maybe this is a related question, but they said, I have the hardest time getting started with a project. Just sitting down at my desk seems overwhelming some days.
So I talked a little bit about this warm up that leads us to our desk. And again, that's part of that motivation question I think I just answered too, is I don't think we realistically can be like the workers that are, it's 9 o'clock, let me sit down at my desk now, let me open my computer, I'm going to like write my blog post right now. So sometimes we have to think about what leads us into getting started at the desk. Do we have certain warm-up rituals, so to speak? And there is a lot of information about this. Another one of my colleagues calls it the on-ramp. Like there's ways that you can get to your desk and think of it in the context of a process. So it's not so tied to the time of day on the clock as this is the starting point, and how do I go about that starting point?
All right, and then we have time for a couple more questions, and then we will let our attendees go for the day. But thank you so much for your questions. Again, we can answer more questions if you want to put those in the chat. We'll just have to reach out to you after today's event. All right, shopping for me is really difficult. There's so many choices, it's hard to decide.
Yes, shopping, like when we realize the number of options of things in our lives right now, a great example is underwear. Like we have briefs, we have hipsters, we have bikinis, we have all sorts of underwear. Okay. So yes, so I recommend limiting your choices. The number of choices is kind of up to you. So minimalists will think 3, like what are my 3 options? Can I limit it to 3? Or, we can go up to any odd number, 11, 17, but just by starting to limit your choices, it's going to be much easier to do your shopping. Also, really keying in, there's an emotional component to shopping. Am I shopping because I want the interaction with the people who are in the shop? Or am I shopping because it's something that I've realized is going to fulfill a need? Or am I a perfectionist and this coffee frother doesn't froth the way I like? I need a different coffee frother that froths better. Okay. So you just want to key into what am I shopping for? And then give yourself a limit, like a reasonable limit to help you make the decisions easier.
All right, one last question. And this is a great one. We would probably do a whole webinar about this. I have a child who has ADHD. How do I help them be more successful transitioning into school in the morning?
That is a great question. And yes, we could totally do a whole program on students with ADHD. So it does really start the night before for your kids, and getting a true routine, which for the parents with ADHD, it really is a challenge to set up this routine for their kids. So success the night before means they're in bed on time and they have as much packed away in their backpack at the back door, wherever they enter the house. So in bed on time, packed up the backpack by the back door, shoes by the back door. Okay. In the morning, it is you get up a smidge earlier, which is harder. Again, we went back to that. What's a good bedtime for you? So you have a little time for your own regroup, self-care, get a shower, get ready, and then start them on their way. I firmly believe in crazy clocks. There's lots of clocks that will wake your kid up that are like, one's actually called the sonic boom. And it is. So, help them get a good start to the day with an alarm clock that works for them, not their phone, an alarm clock. And then that way, and of course, they're resistant to getting up at that time. So you have to start the snooze a little earlier than you might think. Like we want them up at 7, the snooze, we start at 6:45. Okay. And then simple breakfast, nothing elaborate, something they could possibly take in the car, protein, plant-based smoothie, some kind of breakfast sandwich, things like that. And then off you go, or off they go to the bus. So I hope that helps you get started. If you're not there, fortunately it's May. So we have time during the summer to kind of work through that, get a good start in August or September.
Well, very good. Thank you so much for such an informative webinar. I want to thank you so much for being here, Ellen, and we hope to have you back.
Oh, it was such a pleasure, and amazing questions today. Thank you all so much for prioritizing our time together. Really appreciate it.
I want to thank the organizations that have made this webinar possible today. And here at Advice Chaser, we're all about helping you find a financial advisor who's a great fit for your life and your financial questions. Our matching service is free to you, and every one of our advisor partners has committed to offer a free initial consultation to anyone we introduce them to. Find out more by going to advicechaser.com and clicking on the link to find an advisor. Once again, from Advice Chaser, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you at another webinar soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.